the hill, and then you down as well. Quite a long time ways. And the only other thing I remember, especially, that was horrible country and dust all the time. And those old houses, they just were shacks, really. You'd have the wind would blow, and you'd have sand that deep on the windsill, just to come in, and drive my mother crazy trying to keep it clean. And I remember they did put in a septic tank while we were there. That was good. We hadn't had it, and I remember walks that my mother took us on up on the hills around Grand Coulee and up to the memorial they had for people that had already died. And but it was fun. On Sunday afternoon we'd drive down, and there was a viewpoint, and you could look through binoculars, and you could see all this construction going on the dam. It looked like little buckets like this, but they're enormous buckets of concrete. They were brought out there, 4 of them on a cart like a train cart, and then they would pick them up and pour them into the forms as well. It was a really big project, tremendous thing. I think it was one of the biggest dams at that time that had been built. But for some reason, my uncle wanted my dad over at Winthrop, so I moved over there. And so I started the 7th grade there and finished it 7th grade. I think I talked a little bit the other night about we enjoyed the Winthrop, and the winter was fun, and snowballing and building a snow fort and a lot of things that we did. And it was a fun place, it was beautiful at that time, very. I didn't realize how dry it was as compared to some that was on that east side of the Cascades.
Yeah.
And then in the spring we moved back to Medford, and we lived with Everett and Florence for maybe about a month, and we finally located that place out there where and that's where we settled. My dad started renting that house. I think he eventually paid $1,100 for that 3.5 acres, and I can recall even I couldn't understand why he felt this way. The man who owned the property lived in Central Point, so by now we're in the wartime, and he didn't want to drive back and forth and mess with it. So he said to my dad, "I'll sell it to you, and I'll just sell it to you. You just keep on paying the same you're paying now, and it'll be yours when you get done." Well, that seemed like a no-brainer to me, but my dad kept worrying about it. I don't know. I never did know why he worried about it. Maybe because he didn't want to lose it, but he didn't have it to begin with. So anyway, that's how they got that property. That was nice. We didn't have anything when we went out there. That house, we were almost like camping out in it. My mother just had a little stove, a little electric stove to cook on. She cooked hush puppies and stuff, and then the bread man delivered down on the road there by the tracks, and we'd hear his bell, and we'd go down and buy bread from him. And of course, the first summer we really couldn't grow, and it was too late. We got in too late to grow much garden, but there was a lot of hay on the place, and my dad and I helped a little bit, cut it by hand along the side, cut it up, and put it in the barn was there, so we put it in the barn because my dad was figuring as soon as he got money he was going to have a cow. And he did eventually. I don't know how long it was, but he got that cow that he called Buell because he bought her from a guy named Buell. And she was a real nice cow. I could handle her. But the other one he bought a second one later on, and he bought some pigs. He bought a sow, and so he'd have pigs, young ones to sell. They're a pretty good price. You could get $10-15 per pig, a little guy. But I remember a couple of things about that. This big old sow, she was a huge thing. she would, we'd feed her, we'd take potatoes, well, or a lot of pears. We'd mash down in and make slop with pears. They loved that. And I can remember going to the pig pen, and she would be sitting just like a dog. She'd be sitting on her haunches with her front feet up on waiting for the food. And she was quite a pig. And then I remember a couple of times when she had pigs, little ones, they would get out. And that was a headache, awful tough to round them up. So my dad put in an electric fence along there to keep them in, but somehow they'd still get out of that thing. So we'd chase them around and around the pasture, and finally they'd get tired, and maybe about 50, 60 feet from the electric fence, they'd start going wee, and then they'd dive under that. They were yelling before they ever got to it. They knew what was coming.
Give it a shock.
And of course, I became the milker. For some reason, Jim never did milk. I became the milker.
The youngest should never have to milk, just for the record.
Yeah. And this second cow that my dad got, she was a different story. She was, I don't know what it was about her. I liked her all right, but it seemed like we just didn't match. I'd touch her, and my dad could just work with her fine. But I'd practically touch her, and she'd be kicking and everything. And I've used her as an illustration a few times. You know, it says in 2 Corinthians that we're supposed to give. How is it he puts it? Anyway, about giving. So anyway, I said, well, she was a cow. If you pushed, first of all, you got her in the stanchion, then you pushed her up against the wall, and you put the hobbles on her, and you leaned against her so that wasn't much way she'd get her feet going, but she'd kick over a bucket in a hurry. And I said, people talk about how much did she give. I said she never gave anything, but if you worked hard at it, you could take away about 1.5 gallons from her.
Yeah.
That's why some people never give. Anyway, so I milked all through it. And another thing that's kind of interesting, I was always around if they were butchering a pig or a calf or anything. I was always around. I couldn't help much, but I was there. And but Jim, he knew he would not be around when they killed an animal. He didn't like that at all. That's well, I never gave it any thought at the time. So, and during that times when I worked in the orchards, starting in about age 14, and I'd never had any dental work done to speak of. I had my 12-year molars pulled because they were decayed, but I decided I'd spend my money. The year, especially the summer before I went to college, I spent a lot of money getting my teeth fixed up that was a really wise move, because I know that now the nurses sometimes say, you still have your own teeth? You know, they're surprised that I do. But I got that done and then saved money for, it was always tough to save money, but 50 cents an hour or whatever we were baking, but you just did it. You just put it aside. And one thing Jim and I did for my dad, because he loved the radio, and he also loved the baseball games, the Pacific Coast games, and he knew all the teams, and he'd listen to the scores at night and stuff. And that's how I got interested in baseball, was listening to those different accounts of it as well. Now, then those days they had the San Diego Padres, and they had the Seattle Seals, and they had San Francisco Seals, Seattle Rainier, Portland Beavers. All those were Pacific Coast League rigs, and so I listened to them with him sometimes too, and I got interested in it as well. But we bought him a radio. We bought him a Philco radio, cost $100, And boy, he really loved that radio. He used it a lot as well. But we saved money, and so I had some money when I was getting ready to go to college. I didn't have any scholarship. I think I had a couple little things, but nothing much. And went off to college at Eugene, 1945. Still, you had to. I rode up with somebody in the car, and all, but as well. And so I got started there, but didn't last long. As I mentioned, I played in the orchestra of the band for that fall, and the only big event was the marching in Portland. March from the downtown hotel out to the old Multnomah Stadium, wherever it was, as well.
So what was your major? Did you declare a major when you went to
I
Europe?
declared a major was going to be an attorney, going to be law. But I found out I didn't enjoy some of that stuff, so I got out of there before I withdrew from one of my courses before I failed it. and then of course here came the draft notice saying that Uncle Sam wants the honor of your presence. So I went into the Army in January of 1946 as well.
Yeah.
Want to stop a minute and hold off?
Yeah, it overheated a couple of times, so you usually
Good.
stop there.
We'll give you a break.
Yeah, this sweater.
Yeah. Your work